My name is Tomas Salamanca, and I am the Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Muriel Bowser. And we want to welcome you to our final Budget Engagement Forum for FY 2021. I just want to thank the staff at Kenilworth for hosting us today, and we're going to get right into the program. So I'm now going to bring up our Director for Budget and Performance, Jenny Reed.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Reed, and I have the privilege of serving as the Mayor's Director of Budget and Performance Management. I'm really excited you're all here today to help us shape what the budget looks like when we release it in March. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the budget process, what's in our budget, and some of our key investments that we made in fiscal year 20. So in your budget pocket guide, if you look at page 2, there's a wheel that sort of gives you an overview of our budget process, and I'll just walk through that briefly. So we're in the preparation point. It was very important to Mayor Bowser when she took office that we really started with the public engagement. Prior mayors had submitted their budgets and then went out to explain it to the public. And that just didn't make sense to Mayor Bowser. She really wanted to get the input before we released the budget so it could reflect your priorities. So that's what we're doing right now. This is our third and final public engagement forum this year. And we're really excited to get your ideas. In addition to your ideas, we also meet with all of our agency heads to hear about their great ideas for moving the city forward. And then we're going to release our budget on March 19th. The very next day, the mayor and the city administrator and myself will be in front of the DC Council testifying and answering their questions. We then move on to another really important part of the budget process, which is the DC Council oversight hearings. So it's really important that if there are things in the budget that you really care about, that you go and testify in front of the DC Council and make sure that they keep that funding in there. One example is, which you'll hear more about later, is our Housing Production Trust Fund. Last year, the mayor invested $130 million in our main tool to build and preserve affordable housing. Yes. Now, unfortunately, the council reduced that. They funded it at $116 million. So it's still an increase, but not as much, and we know there's a lot more to be done. So if you see something in the budget you care about, it's important that you testify. The council will then take a couple of votes on the mayor's budget in May, and then we move to the other side of my office, which is on the performance and the accountability side. So we release the funds to the agencies, they begin their work to implement their programs, and then at the end of the year, we come back and tell you how well we did through the mayor's accountability report. We have our agency performance oversight hearings through the council, and then we release our audit. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the DC budget fundamentals. So kind of why are you here? The district is really unique because we are a city, state, and county all in one. We do a lot of stuff, and as a result, we have a very large budget, about $15.4 billion. About $10 billion of that are our general funds, so these are local funds raised through local taxes and fees. We have about $3.4 billion in federal funds, including Medicaid, and about $2 billion in enterprise funds. We also spend about $2 billion in this fiscal year on our capital budget, and this is the funding that's used to build beautiful infrastructure like the recreation center we're sitting in today. So when you look at that $15 billion and how it breaks down, the largest share of our budget goes to human support services. These are all of our healthcare services, these are our supports for our families, and other really critical services for our most vulnerable residents. About $3.5 billion is what we call our financing and other. This is really like our credit card. This is where we pay for all our debt service. so that we can build great buildings like this, we can repave our roads and do other critical infrastructure projects. Importantly, this also includes funds to fulfill our labor agreements. And so in this fiscal year, we've actually budgeted $89 million to fulfill labor agreements with our police department, our principals in our schools, our bus drivers and our attendants, and other public servants. About $2.8 billion is spent on public education. This includes our schools, our University of the District of Columbia, our public library system. Yes, I hear some UDC fans in the house. About $1.9 billion is spent in our public works. This is for picking up the trash, for filling your potholes, and other really critical services. $1.4 billion is spent on public safety. So this is our police department, our fire department, also our Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and our 911 and 311 call takers. And then last, but certainly not least, we spend just under $1 billion on economic development and regulation. And importantly, this includes our funding for affordable housing. So here are some of the highlights in the budget. Here's kind of what all that money actually translates to. As I mentioned, the mayor is very committed to creating and preserving more affordable housing in the district. So we've funded $116 million in the Housing Production Trust Fund. We've got about $6 million for our Safe at Home program, which helps seniors age in place, and $47 million for our Homeward DC program, which is helping to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. This investment is actually part of over $100 million that we've invested in the last 5 years in this area. When it comes to education, we spend about $1.8 billion on services for our DC Public School students through DC Public Schools and DC Public Charter Schools. We have $1.6 million for our new connected schools, which are bringing in services for the whole community right in the school, and $1.2 billion to modernize many of our school facilities and continue on the path to give all students a great place to learn. In public safety, we spend about $9 million to provide more police officers to help get those folks out on the street, $3.5 million for more ambulances and paramedics, and $6.3 million to expand our violence prevention services. In the area of jobs and economic opportunity, we have about $8 million for our Great Streets and Neighborhood Prosperity Fund. This fund actually helps bring fresh food and grocery options to underserved areas. We have about $250,000 for our Aspire business startup program and $200,000 for Dream Grants, all of which are helping underserved individuals start and maintain their own business. In the area of health, we've spent $6 million to expand mental health services in schools, $1 million for our 24-hour mobile crisis outreach team, and $500,000 for senior dental health services. And last, in the area of transportation and environment, we spend about $63 million to make sure people can get to where they're going safely, $38 million to help repair our streets, and we're actually on track to get all of our streets in a state of good repair by 2023, thanks to the investments from Mayor Bowser, and $468 million for our metro service. So there's so much more in here that we've funded, but those are some of the highlights, and you're all going to spend some time today talking about how you would allocate this big pie. But before you do that, I'm excited to be able to turn it over to the person who has changed the way that we completely engage in the budget process by having you all here, our Mayor, Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am delighted to see you all here today at the beautiful Kenilworth Recreation Center in Ward 7, and I want to acknowledge and thank all the Ward 7 community leaders who are here to join us, and all of you who have come. Today is the final budget engagement forum for this season. This is our 6th year where we have 3 across the city, as well as a senior telephone town hall. You heard from Jenny that when I became mayor, we switched the process of community engagement a little bit as far as the executive is concerned. I served on the council. I worked with 2 mayors, and during that time, I was always a little disappointed that the mayors would collect all the information from the agency directors and then present the budget to the council. And then the council would have public engagement during hearings. We can do so much more to change priorities or add to this one or to adjust a different category based on what we hear from the public, the sooner we do it in the process. And that's why we started these series of budget engagement forums. Everybody is familiar with the budgeting process because you do it for your own household. And today we're going to work on an exercise and ask you to participate. To start with your own views of how a $100 budget would look, and then work with your table mates to negotiate for your table what your $100 budget would be. And though the numbers are different, it's not so dissimilar to what we do with $15.5 billion. We listen to all of our stakeholders, and we work very hard to invest in the priorities that will make a difference, that are effective programs and services for the most people across the District of Columbia in the fastest way possible. And that's kind of the lens that I start with our engagement. So have fun. You're going to meet a lot of your neighbors. Some people you know, most people you probably don't know. You're going to learn in this negotiation the things you have in common. And then you're going to learn your different budget priorities. And we're going to work together as neighbors to get those things done. I am so grateful, and I'm going to take this opportunity, since it's our final forum, to acknowledge my team that has done such an outstanding job. We've had over 400 people at each of our sessions this week. So let's give our office of Community Affairs and Tomas Talamonte, my Deputy Chief of Staff, a big round of applause for that. I also want to acknowledge my budget team that is led by Jenny Reed, who you just heard from. Give Jenny a big round of applause because they ask tough questions. They make fantastic recommendations. And at the end of the day, on March the 21st, we're going to deliver a balanced budget for the 25th time to the Council of the District of Columbia. And then at that point, as you heard from Jenny, the council is going to hear from you. And I'm also going to appeal to you for all of the things that matter that we're advocating for. And a lot of them are going to show up in my budget proposal. It's also important that you impress upon the council how important it is to advance the priorities of the residents of the District of Columbia. So we're going to get to it, and you're going to hear from the deputy mayors about their various clusters. They're going to pitch you on why you should invest a bigger portion of your $100 in their clusters. So with that, thank you for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you at your tables.
All right, let's hear it one more time for Mayor Bowser. So as the mayor said, we're excited to get started. If you haven't already, you should have allocated, this is the last page in your worksheet packet, your individual budgets. How would you spend $100 based on the different categories that are listed? This is, again, as Mayor said, how we have to approach the budget, make trade-offs, make compromises to get to where we need to be. So you're starting out individually. Then we're going to begin a table discussion for about 10 minutes about several issues that are the categories within your $100 allocation. And then you're going to hear from our deputy mayors, and then we'll get into coming together as a table to establish one $100 budget per table. So there's going to be trade-offs, there's going to be compromises. We've had some good fun on this, so we look forward to hearing from you all. So we're going to get started right now. Our directors and deputy mayors and the mayor will be floating around to listen to your conversations, and we'll come back together here shortly. Thank you. As you begin the process as a table, or a special shout out to our bleacher crew in the back with Team Bleacher, woo! As a table or as a bleacher crew, you're going to come together and have to make some concessions and build out a budget, a $100 budget together. And so you're going to hear directly from our deputy mayors on why they want you to prioritize their cluster, their issue funding. So to kick us off is our deputy mayor for education, Paul Kine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Kine, and I'm the Deputy Mayor for Education. And we in Washington have a very simple vision for our public education system. We want strong early childhood education for all of our babies, with very high quality, by right neighborhood schools close to where families live, with exciting and innovative choice schools for families that want them, all of which, of course, leads to very clear pathways into family-sustaining jobs for all residents starting in high school. And we in Washington have so much to be proud of because we are clearly on the right road to achieving this vision. Washington, D.C. is the fastest improving urban school system in the country. And these improvements have come about from all of the investment that Mayor Bowser has made in our public education system. And they have come about from all the extraordinary daily hard work of our educators and our teachers. I suspect there are some teachers here today. Are there teachers? So we as a city thank you for actually making these improvements possible. Now, clearly we have come a very long way together as a city, and we know we have a lot of work left to do. Right now, while all of our students learn more and more every year, there are still unacceptable gaps in performance among groups of students. And fully 2/3 of our students do not yet meet the high standards we have set for college and career readiness for all of our students. And this is why the mayor has recently announced another historic investment in public education, proposing a 4% increase in the per-pupil funding for next year. To be specific, this would translate into nearly $2 billion going into our schools to sustain and accelerate the progress that we've seen. $2 billion. And so today, what we're asking you to consider is this enough? And as you consider the trade-offs at your tables, and you will hear from some of my other less important colleagues in a moment, I want you to consider the babies. Do we need to put more money into early childhood education? And if we do, what should we spend it on? Should we spend it on increasing the number of seats that we have across the city? Should we spend it on increasing the salaries of our early childhood educators who earn minimum wage? Should we spend it on making early childhood education more affordable? Families spend nearly $24,000 a year currently. The second thing I want you to consider as you consider the trade-offs is, while we've proposed our schools budget for next year, we continue to think about whether we should make the fundamental trade-off between giving all schools more funding or prioritizing funding for the students that need it the most, who are most at risk. So please consider these investments as you consider education in your budget trade-offs. And I will now hand the mic to one of my less important colleagues, Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Wayne Turnage, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services and the Director of the Department of Health Care Finance. Before I begin, I would also like to acknowledge Council Member Vince Gray, who is a Council Member for Ward 7. And thank him in advance for what I'm sure will be a favorable treatment of the mayor's budget. You will hear a number of budget pitches today. You've already heard one. But I'm here to tell you there is one supposition that lives without challenge, and that is that there is no city, large or small, that can prosper and endure without the benefit of an advanced system of health care. No matter the quality of its schools, the scope and pace of its economic development, the apparent vibrancy of its citizens, or the power of its government. Frankly, if a city cannot take care of the health of its residents, it will perish. Untreated illness can have a terrible leveling effect on the population, and the pernicious consequences of disease are callously non-discriminatory. There are two important areas of the city that I want to talk about where existing healthcare challenges and the quality of the system of healthcare delivery deserve special attention. I'm talking about wards 7 and 8. It's important to note that more than 7 out of every 10 residents who live in these two wards must rely upon publicly funded health care insurance to pay for their health care delivery. Disproportionately, these areas are inhabited by the youngest residents in this city, many of whom are caught in a vicious, airtight cage of poverty. Despite having comprehensive health insurance coverage, the residents in these wards have higher morbidity levels than observed in any other part of the District of Columbia. I'm speaking specifically about higher rates of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, HIV, serious trauma, and disturbingly high infant mortality levels. Tragically, as you would imagine, as a result of these troubling issues, a child born in Ward 7 or 8 today can expect to live, on average, 15 years less than a child who was born in any other area of the city on the same day. Yet, despite these very serious problems, there is no high-functioning, integrated system of health care east of the river. And by high-functioning, I mean a robust community hospital that offers invaluable acute and hospital-based clinic services with a strong nexus to outpatient services that should exist across the two wards. This tragic situation should not be the case in a city that is as rich in resources as Washington, D.C. That is why the mayor believes that the best way to solve this problem is to ensure that there is a comprehensive, integrated healthcare system located east of the river with a modern community acute care hospital serving as the hub. This major investment in healthcare infrastructure would end the unequal access to health care across the city and would almost certainly improve the health outcomes for the residents of Wards 7 and 8. So I hope that all of you, regardless of where you live or the table that you are presently sitting, will stop in and examine your conscience about this issue. And as you consider this proposal and the mayor's health care plans and expenditures for the city of Washington, D.C., please recognize that when the health care of residents is diminished by the challenges that exist in Ward 7 and 8, the health care of all people are diminished. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Donahue. I'm the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. And this is my third budget forum for this series, so it's our last one this year. So I'm going to say out loud what I think every time I walk up here, which is really hard to follow Wayne Turnage. But I'm going to try. This is actually my 18th forum total. I've been to every one. And this is the first time, which, by the way, for a Saturday forum, this is the most spectacular turnout I've ever seen for a Saturday forum. This is the first time I'm able to use a visual cue to talk about public safety. So if whoever controls, stay there. So I'm going to try to talk about public safety through two photographs that try to make the point about how broad public safety is now. Start by looking on the photo on the right, young men, proud young men in suits. That's a photo of our Pathways graduates, which is a program run out of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, whose director is here today, somewhere over there, somewhere in the back, Director McFadden. The Pathways program takes people, young men often between ages of 18 and 35, at a very delicate moment in their life. They're often returning from incarceration, sometimes actively involved still in dangerous situations. They look for work with the burden of a felony record, often involving a gun. And if you get to know them beyond their interaction with law enforcement, you find young men with enormous potential and in which society and our support systems have failed in almost every way, often from a young age. When they go to Pathways, they're given counseling, they're given classes for education, for training, they're given mentorship, and it all comes to one office, the one's office. It's 8 hours a day, it's 5 days a week, sometimes the weekend, and at the end of 3 months, they're given a job with those supports carrying them into that work. And the results are clear. Almost everyone who entered the program graduates with a job. Almost everyone sticks with that job, and almost none of them have any interaction with law enforcement since they started the program. Thank you. Thank Dell back there. The other photo is some young men and women who are in our cadet program. So for those who don't know the cadet program, it's a program that's been around for a few decades. And it's meant to take DC residents, graduates of our high schools, and allow them to become police officers so they can serve communities they grew up in. If you're a cadet, generally a young man or woman, 18 to 24, you're given a full scholarship to UDC to get your 60 college credits. You're given a civilian job at MPD that pays about $30,000 a year. And at the end of it, you have the opportunity to join our academy. Like the Pathways program, but a very different one, almost everyone who begins as a cadet graduates with their college credits, with their college diploma, and almost everyone becomes a police officer. And look at the photo. You see a group of proud young men and women, everyone who's a person of color. Almost everyone in that photo was born and raised in Ward 7 and 8. Half are female. When the mayor came into office, there was about 30 cadets. We now have about 100 cadets. And we have the opportunity to make this larger and have this be the primary way that a new police force is grown and brought up at MPD. So I want to close by saying I picked these two photos intentionally because they're very, very different programs, because I want to make 2 points. One is that when you think about public safety, think about everything that we do. And that includes on one side a good 911 system, police officers who are compassionate and respectful and respond quickly and solve crimes, but also violence interrupters who are now in our communities and our schools. We have emergence, we have social workers at hospitals, and we have men like that as part of our Pathways program. And it's all public safety. So when you think about it, they each do different things. So one does not replace the other. And to really make our community safe, we have to invest in both. Let me just say this for closing. Since this is my 18th forum, I know that when you sit at your tables, generally what comes out is public safety number that might begin with a 0, a 1, and maybe a 2. And so I want you to think that public safety isn't always the result of a good education system, stable housing, but it's the prerequisite for really getting the benefits of it. A child who does not feel safe has a hard time learning. An individual who's been traumatized by violence doesn't create a strong healthcare system, but creates strains around it. And none of my programs, none of these programs cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't even cost tens of millions. They really cost a few $1 million, and with your support, they can have a transformative effect on our communities. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Woke y'all up, didn't I? I'm Lucinda Babers. I'm the Deputy Mayor for Operations and Infrastructure. And I'm here to talk about all things transportation and Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is our goal of having 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries. And we need you all's help because that means you have to pay attention, put down the phone, and save lives. So let's first talk about public transportation. Public transportation is what we love. It is WMATA. You heard earlier, this year we invested $468 million. $23 million of that is the Kids Ride Free program. Hopefully your kids are riding free to school. And then for 21, the general manager of WMATA has put forth some enhancements, such as adding back limited late night service. So if you all want more late night services, we need you all to contact WMATA. Go to their website, go to your council member, let them know that you support that. Now, he's also proposed a surcharge for people who pay cash. That's not right. That's not equitable. So if you don't agree, we need you to contact WMATA or your council members and let them know that. Now, how many people ride the bus? All right, so we are investing in a Ward 7 circulator route. We also, of course, invest in WMATA's Metro bus service. But once again, for 21, the general manager is proposing consolidating some routes, which is going to mean some eliminated services. So I also encourage you all to let them know if you feel you will be negatively impacted by that. Now, y'all, Miss Riggs back there at table number 23. We see you, Miss Riggs. She said that she's giving $0 to transportation because she drives. I just happen to be back there. It does not matter if you drive, if you walk, if you cycle, if you use public transportation. You need to give us money because Miss Riggs is not getting anywhere if there are no roads, if there are no traffic lights, if there are no stop signs. So you all have to understand that transportation is what got you all here this morning. So I need 25% of your $100 to make sure that we can provide safe, equitable, and reliable transportation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let's try that again. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's that? Yeah, I'm going to switch.
I turned it. Okay.
That's on. Good afternoon. Is that better? All right. My name is John Falchicchio. I'm the acting deputy mayor for planning and economic development. And tap your neighbor and say, we're going to talk about housing. We're going to talk about housing. All right. I got a two-question survey that I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask Claudine to stand up and help me with this. This is Claudine. Claudine, where do you live?
Ward 7.
Let's give her a round of applause. All right, so I'm going to ask the question, and if it applies to you, raise your hand and then keep your hand up, okay? All right, so how many people here have lived in D.C. their whole life, like Mayor Bowser and Councilmember Gray? Raise your hands. Okay, that's a lot. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, I'll ask those folks, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Now, how many people like me have lived in D.C. for over 20 years? Let's raise those hands. All right, everybody keep your hands up. If you had them up, keep them up. How about over 10 years? Over 5? Less than 5? All right, now, keep those hands up, keep those hands up. Here Claudine can't count them all. She's lived here for a while. Now, I'm going to ask another question. I'm going to close my eyes before you answer. Keep those hands up. How many folks, and Claudine, you're going to tell me the answer. You're going to count the hands that remain up, right? So how many folks here think that we've done all that we can do to address the crisis of a housing affordability? Claudine, how many hands are up?
None.
None. All right, so like Lizzo says, the truth hurts, but we're going to take that truth and we're going to channel it to some change, right? So I know there's and I'm going to do something that the other deputy mayors might not have done. There's actually 3 resources that are going to help us meet the mayor's goal of building 36,000 new homes by 2025. Those 3 resources are time, people, and money. So if you look at this chart, and I know it's hard to see exactly what it says, but you get a sense of it. It's around all 4 corners. The bar is actually the amount of permits, building permits for residences, right? And if you look at the front of the graph, you see the 1960s. And you see our population was really high, and the number of residential building permits were as high as the population was, right? And then you know over the years that our population declined. But you see that in the 2000s, right? In the 2000s, yep, we're coming to that. In the 2000s, the population started to rise. And look at the bar graphs. Do they keep up with the rate of population growth?
No.
They don't, right? So what that means is, in order to address the affordable housing issue in the district, we're going to have to take the time to build more housing, and we're going to have to build more each and every year. There are some years actually on this graph in the 90s, in the mid-90s. I came here in 1997. In 1996, you know how many residential building permits were pulled from the district? Whoever said 0 was right. So clearly we need to take the time and invest the resources in order to build more housing so that we can address housing affordability. Now, the next thing we need is people. So one of the projects we're working on is the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan determines what the zoning can be, and probably the most visible part of the comprehensive plan, which is a 1,600-page document, is the future land use map. What that does is it determines how much height and density a particular plot of land can have. What we need to do is we need to create more height and density so that we create more housing. Right? So those are going to take tough conversations with neighborhoods to ask them to do their part. Now, part of the mayor's 36,000 by 2025 is creating 12,000 units of affordable housing. And not just doing that all in one place, but spreading it around the city. So there are 10 planning areas in the city, and we need to make sure that affordable housing is built in all of those planning areas. Are you still with me on this? Okay, great. So then money. Let's talk about money. We are at budget engagement forums, and all my fellow deputy mayors did a good job of telling you why they need more money. However, I'm going to give you the one reason why we need to put more money into housing. Because if we invest in all the great things that they just talked about, and we don't invest in housing, then who are we doing it for? We need places for DC residents to live and to grow and to prosper. So, The Housing Production Trust Fund is one tool that we use to create affordable housing. 50% of that has to be spent on folks who make between 0 and 30% of the area median income. Right now, we put about $116 million into that fund. Last year, the mayor actually had proposed that we put $130 million into the fund. The council set it a little bit lower, and they put it at $116. Now, the $116 million doesn't keep up with the pace of the asks for affordable housing by community builders, both nonprofit and for-profit. Just this year, they've asked for, and have projects and create units, they've asked for $348 million. So our 116 has to go up. But the mayor can't do that. If she does it, she needs to know that you, the people, are going to be with her when she sends it to the council and say that just like we all had our hands up together, we're all in this together and we have to reach higher. So I thank you for listening to my talk about housing and how we address housing affordability. What you're going to do next is, as a table, you're going to take this cardboard $100 game and you're going to refine it. Based on the pitches that you just heard from the deputy mayors, how would you as a table spend that $100? Right? So you've just heard some more information. How would you as a table spend that $100? And then in about 10 minutes, we're going to have some readouts from the tables to hear how they wanted to spend the $100. Thank you, everybody.
Again, we have 10 minutes for this section, so we'll come back together in 10 minutes. So who wants to go first and tell us how you allocated? Oh, table 3 was the loudest. You got to be loud if you want to go. So table 3. Make sure you say your name, your ward for whoever's your speaker. And if we can quiet down a little bit so we can hear our neighbors at table 3.
Okay. Do I have to stand, or?
Yes, you do have to stand. Y'all want to stand together?
Yes. I'll just use.
All right, table 3, get us started.
Can somebody hold this, or? Okay, so on our budget, we've put public health as $20.
Can we get your name and your ward first, please?
Name. Sorry. So my name is Ismella, and I'm in Ward 7.
Woo!
Thank you. So for our table, we wanted to invest in, we figured out how to budget this, and we said with $100, we would put $20 to health, $5 to public safety, $20 to transportation, $40 to housing, $5 to education, and then we added $10 for the IJLS, Immigrant Legal Services. And then we put $40 to housing because we think it's very important based on where you're living. With the cost of living increasing so much, we think it's important that we have affordable housing for everyone that lives here in the community. Transportation, again, we put 20 because people who live here, that live nearby, they need to have access to the bus and metro and get to places. So we think that's a priority. And health, we think, is important because affordable health care is important to make sure we're providing services, quality services for medical care, having things that are more affordable. For public safety and the police, we think we may need more community involvement with that aspect. Education, we think, is good, but we need more parents involved with their children's education. maybe tutoring services, some more support and resources for the children. It would be vital. But again, housing for us was the most important.
Thank you, Table 3. We'll go to the next. Who wants to go next? I gotta hear a little louder. I hear table 39 in the back pretty loudly, so let's go to table 39.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris. I am new to Ward 7. In our budget proposal, we prioritized health at 27%. Public safety, we allocated 20% of our budget. Transportation, 10%. Housing, 15%. Education, 26%. Second highest priority for us. And finally, for other investments, we opted 2% of our budget. Thank you very much for our presentation. Mayor, we hope you adopt our budget. The other is for investments and what else did we have here? Jobs and economic opportunity. Thank you.
And let's go to the next table. I'm going to go to Miss Table 7. Let's get a mic to Table 7.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for hearing us out today. We had a robust conversation, and we wanted to emphasize that our number one priority amongst the table was education. We have to focus on educating our children. We have to understand that there are other priorities that within education. If you think about trauma enforced in our schools, our children are, when you look at the comprehensive budget, they are all laced together. You think about public safety, that affects the child in education. If their parents were removed from the household, they are seeing trauma in the streets, they need those specialized programs to help them, so they have a comprehensive approach. So I just put a little extra on the fact that why we were putting education as our number one priority at 30%. Then our second priority was health. As outlined by our health administrator, there are certain disparities that are prevalent within all of D.C., especially in Ward 7 and 8. And it overtaxes the entire community when individuals have to travel from Ward 7 and 8 over to Ward 2 and Ward 1 to get appropriate health care. We have to do better. And I'm going to just go back to that point about education and why it's our number one priority, because it was a wonderful story on Ellen that they were supporting Randall Highlands, which would have been my neighborhood school. But that's embarrassing when we have a national surplus in our D.C., but we have to have a TV personality to give us money to help our schools. We have to do better. Don't you all agree? So when we look at the other priorities, we have transportation and housing equally at 12.5%. And then we also have one of our representatives here who was talking about transportation. He can't even employ many of our DC residents because they don't have the aptitude and to provide for these jobs that are plentiful. So when we go outside of DC and we're asking these businesses to come to DC and bring their business, and we don't have the educated workforce, what are we going to do then? So we have to make education our priority.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's hear it. I got to go to table 2. Table 2.
I can hold it myself. I got it. All right. Our biggest item here is housing, which is 40%. What are we interested in? My name is Dr. Lewis Tate. I pastor a church called The Village. And Mayor, we're glad to be here. But we're also interested in public housing, of public land and Reservation 13. Also, I'm a part of WIN, Washington Interfaith Network. And it's important that when you build something on Reservation 13, that 30% of those residents are the area medium income and 60%. And it's very important, too, as we look at our budget, that health comes next, because health is very important. Even though we do believe in public safety, but we don't need to spend $600 million on public safety in Washington, D.C. Also on our budget, transportation, but the next thing is education, because if we have an educated citizenry, then we won't need as much policing. All right? Thank you.
All right, who's going to be next? I see 37 in the back jumping and...
All right. My name is Hannah, and I'm the student of the Columbia High Educational Campus.
Wave your hand. I can't see you. Who's speaking?
In the back corner here.
Okay.
And I'm from Ward 1, and I'm representing for my table to promoting our investment. So I believe that we should invest more in education. That is one of our first priorities. And the second priority is health. And also, in our opinions, we think that housing is also important. That's why this is our third priorities. And
the remaining ones are transportation, which is 10%. Public safety, which is 50%, and for other, we thought it should be 5%. Oh, my name's Andrea. I'm from Ward 1, and I'm representing Columbia Heights Educational Campus.
All right, who's going to be next? Let's go up to our bleacher team up here.
Bleacher team.
We're running a mic over to you right now. There's Shalon with the mic.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm representing someone from Ward 7, and we decided that we put 21 in health, 21 in education, and 16, we went with 95 instead of 100. So 16 for public safety, transportation, and housing, and then 5% for other, and our reasoning is that includes like statehood and other things. But you guys need to fund the DSP Wage Act and see if you can get a wheelchair division in education. You can work with Maryland and Virginia on that, but we put 21 in education for those two things. So hopefully you guys can get those things done.
Very good. So let me see, is there any table? Hold up, I gotta put your hands down for a second. Put your hands down for a second. Because I want to hear from any table that has transportation that's $30 or more. Does anybody have transportation at $30 or more?
Looks like table 25.
All right, let's hear table 25.
Let's run a mic over to table 25. Oh, no. Okay, we'll go to a different table.
Does anybody have a table with public safety at $25 or more? Okay. Does anybody have health at $50 or more? Okay, so it looks like we're pretty evenly invested here this afternoon. No? What is the category with the largest investment? Anybody have a... Okay, so let's go to table number 10, and you tell me your largest investment.
Our largest investment is health, but bear with us because we got line items. We want you to invest $30 in health, specifically for a hospital and a grocery store over here in Ward 7. We then want you to invest $20 in public safety, with all but 5 of that specifically go into pathways, so that every returning citizen can get their feet stably on the ground.
Okay.
We want 5 for transportation with a specific focus on fighting blight. And then we want 25 into housing, specifically to end homelessness and to provide crisis and DV shelter housing.
Okay.
And we want 0 to 3 education and $20 for education.
Okay, that's pretty even, so thank you for that. And I know that there has been a number of tables that I've been around to talking about grocery and healthy food, especially in Ward 7 and 8. And there are a number of ideas and things that we are working on from our side, including 2 new grocers that will be coming to Ward 8 at Good Hope Road and further on South Capitol Street. We continue to focus on what can be added at Benning Road, and we think that we have some exciting food opportunities there. But we continue to work on an idea with your council member about getting some additional capital funds that will help entice a new grocer. So we're coming at it from a lot of different aspects, but we definitely hear you and recognize the need to attract not just the big guys, because it's been hard to attract the big guys, although some of them, Safeway, are continue to be interested. But we've also looked at some smaller format grocers that have been successful in other parts of the city to open 2nd and 3rd locations. So we'll keep you posted. All right, very good. So who else wants to share their budget? Table 8.
Good afternoon, my name is Janelle. Good afternoon, my name is Janelle Jeffrey, and this is
Rahana Mohammed.
And I actually live across the street. I'm representing the Eastland Gardens Civic Association. So welcome to my neighborhood. We listed 3 main things as our top objectives. One being health. We need a hospital. We need more emphasis with an emphasis on early childhood and maternal care. Secondly, housing, specifically with 30 to 50% AMI. And caring for our homeless population. And third is education, with a specific emphasis on mental health and also on childcare. Aside from that, the next areas of emphasis, public safety got $10. And we are what's very important to us here is our other category, which we also gave $10 to. Our Kenilworth Park over here, it's a beautiful park. It has a lot of different opportunities that could exist there. If only with help we could get it to be fixed. It's contaminated. A lot of people don't really know that. We need help with that because a lot of us who live on this side of the water, we know that we want a place to enjoy our outdoor activities. We have a tennis court that needs to be fixed. We have a lot of stuff, and it can help Deanwood. It can help Kenilworth as a whole. It can help all of our areas over here because we all use it. It's a beautiful place to ride through. The trails are great. Thank you, Mayor. The trails are great. But we have we want you to stop and stay and play with us for a while. So that's a part of that. And last but not least, we gave $5 to transportation because you guys will see when you try to exit here, it's not very nice leaving the area. So we need help with that too. So that's how we broke out our $100.
Well, thank you for telling us about your neighborhood and presenting a great budget. 25.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Ife Bozimo. I'm from Ward 6. I represent the African community. This is also the view of my table members as well. Our most important item here, well, there's a tie between housing and education, But education is more important to us because as an African, one of our famous sayings is educate a child, you educate a whole community. Education can never be overemphasized, the importance of education. So education and housing, a man who is, who has a home, it's easier to coordinate your family, your thoughts, and be able to be productive. Those two are very important, and I hope that the mayor would adopt our suggestions. And then next to that, there's also a tie between health and public safety. They both share 50. Sorry, I didn't mention how much. Housing and education are $30 each. And then we have health and public safety at $15 each. They are also quite important, but I think housing and education are more important for the community. And then the last will be transportation, which is $10. And that is mostly because we feel that, like my table members mentioned, we have a good transportation system already, but considering that most of the transportation system is shared between Maryland and Virginia, we feel like we should not invest much more than $15 on transportation because it's like a joint effort. So please, the mayor and the council, we hope that you adopt more of education and housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Education and housing, again, 36.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Tim. Our group had a very lively and interesting debate. We talked a lot of these were priorities for us. So housing, especially public housing and deeply affordable housing, including 30% AMI, should be a priority. And in fact, the education, supporting smaller class sizes, childcare, and we just know we need a lot more money for education. And we support the East of the River Hospital in Ward 7, and more funding for nutrition in the health area. So we put, and for transportation, we put the lowest amount, $10, but that's because we don't need, there's so much that could be done with a little bit more money in transportation, especially towards Vision Zero and bicycle and pedestrian safety issues in DDOT. So we put $25 for health, $15 for public safety, $10 for transportation, $25 for housing, which is a human right, and $25 for education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all, everybody. I'm going to take a couple of more, and then we're going to focus on specific issue areas. 12.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Bowser and staff. My name is Jose. I'm here from La Clínica del Pueblo. I'm also here representing the DC Values Coalition. We're asking you to increase the funding to $5 million and to remove the 6-month alliance policy. So we had a very good discussion here on our table. We started our budget at $120 because we've had in our city a surplus for the last few years. And I think, DC is not DC with the black and brown communities that exist and live and work and play here. So we're starting with 120, and I think we apportioned 30 to health, which would include and prioritize healthcare services in Ward 7 and 8 to address the health disparities that exist here in Ward 6 and 7 and 8. And also removing the 6-month alliance policy, $10 to public safety, $10 for transportation, $25 to housing, $30 for education. That would address the health needs in Ward 7 and 8. There's a lot of underfunding in education here in this area. As I mentioned before, increasing the funding to $5 million for the IGLS grant program that would provide legal services and legal representation for DC immigrants.
Thank you for that. And let me just say, because we've gotten also a couple of comments about the hospital, and I know you heard from Deputy Mayor Turnage about how we are working very hard to come to an agreement with a provider to build a brand new hospital at the St. Elizabeth's campus, a hospital that we can all be proud of, that serves Ward 7 and 8, but serves the entire city and the entire region. We are really hopeful that we're going to iron out some of the final details, but there is important to get it right because we will be committing $300 million to build that hospital, and we also need to make sure that we have the provider that can operate it at the level that we all need. Now, we will be going to the council with a package. This is where I ask for your help. We're going to be going to the council with a package that represents our best thinking, the best deal possible that has been vetted and scrubbed. And the thing about deals like this, when it happens, not everybody gets everything that they want, but we get what we need for the residents of Ward 7 and 8. And so let me just tell you that that's what we're pushing really hard for. As soon as I have it done, we'll be reporting it out, but we're going to be sending a big package to the council, not just to talk about a hospital, because if we were just talking about a hospital, that wouldn't be enough, because the real goal of our healthcare system is to keep people out of the hospital. And so we're going to be talking about all of the services, specialists that we need. And this is kind of an intersection with public safety, too, because part of our healthcare system for too many people is calling 911 and getting in an ambulance and sitting in an emergency room. So that's why when we talk about public safety, I've also asked you to think about the men and women of our fire department and our paramedics, because they are unfortunately part of the system where really we want people to be going to their primary care physicians. So we'll continue to work with the council member and the council's Committee on Health to advance that deal as soon as I am sure that all of us have been protected in it. And we're going to get that to you real soon, okay? Number 15, you've been patient.
So we wanted to do this together to emphasize that none of us is alone in this process, and we're all united together and have to come to consensus. So I'm Tiara Fletcher. We're both from Ward 7, and this is
Gaby Fraser. And before we talk about how we're going to spend our $100, I just wanted to say something. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I'm very proud. It's my priority, and making sure that our children have everything is wonderful. I'll say, you can build a car from scratch and read every book on a car, but until you drive a car, it's not the same. Thank you for the 4% interest in the UPS. That's wonderful. But now I feel things are going to get even better because you've now joined the ranks of a mother. So we're expecting more from you because you have a child in this also. So it's no more sympathy, it's now empathy. So that being said, go ahead.
All right, so I'll start with the other category. Just because it's the lower doesn't mean that it's not significant or important. In that category, we have jobs and economic security, and we also had a very strong advocate for immigrant support services. We have a very diverse community, so we want to make sure that that community is not neglected. Moving up, we also have transportation at 5%. And moving to one of our more important categories that we have allocated more to is health and human services. Health is really the foundation of who we are and how we're able to operate. And if we don't have a strong foundation, we can't build a house upon it. Another high category that we have is education. We've allocated a lot to education because we believe that if education is a strong focus, then a lot of the other categories can benefit from individuals having more information and access to information to improve their lives. And also we have housing at 20%. There's a strong concern that a lot of the people who built this city are not necessarily going to have the opportunity to continue to live in this city. So there needs to be a conversation and some decisions around how do we redefine what affordable housing really means. And then also we have public safety at 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. That's outstanding. So what I want to switch real quick, and then we'll see how much time we have left. But I want to switch real quick to talk about some of different advocacy groups who are here. And I'm going to ask one person representing those groups to to speak. So does DC Pave want to go first? DC Pave? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, DC Pave is my program. You just pave.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can wait.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry. I hear wrong. Mayor, I want to, first of all, I want to
Just
say.
Go ahead. 1 minute to tell us about DC Pave and your number one issue today.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you to you because this is engaged. Only this is the way that we be able to build it. And I really appreciate all your team and the work that you guys doing today. I would like to say we want to see more than this. Not only because we don't have enough representation from the whole Washingtonian. So we need more than this engaged in the whole city. We have to reach those people where we not able to get it today.
Okay, your number one issue.
Pay. We are represent parents. We are in place voices in education. We try to bring more conscious about education system, how we can support parents, and the way we support children, we need support parents because they are in the day of the day who are representing children all the whole city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who else has on a T-shirt that wants the trans housing, jobs, opportunities? Who wants to speak? Who wants to speak? Go ahead. Okay, there we go. We got to get you a microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charmaine Eccles, and I'm the Director of Programs at Casa Ruby. We are here today because there were 17 trans people in our circle who died last year due to preventable causes, either freezing in the cold, just nowhere to go, being murdered, and due to HIV. And these are a need for our community, and these are our family and friends. And, if these individuals had a place to stay for housing, if they had a job to sustain, they no longer have to turn to the streets. So we just need those opportunities.
All right, thank you. So that housing, health, all mentioned. Gold. Let me see. Listen to LGBTQ voices.
Hi, I'm Rahana Mohammed, and I'm here representing the DC LGBTQ Coalition. We're a group of over 15 LGBTQ organizations from across the city, and we're advocating for $20 million to support the LGBTQ population. This includes health, education, housing, like my colleagues from Casa Ruby spoke about. I'm from the DC Center, but we also need to make sure that we have a community center for the LGBTQ community that is proportionate to our population. We're over 9% of DC, which is the highest proportion of most cities in the country, but we also have the highest rate of hate crimes against our community. We need to make sure we give more funding for the city to track down those and investigate those bias-related incidents and hate crimes and prosecute those effectively. And also to fund our Pride celebration and make sure that we have, again, a community center where LGBTQ folks can be welcomed and affirmed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Win, the mighty Win, straight ahead at table 21 in the blue shirts. And I just see, I'm coming to you purple shirts and red shirts.
Hi, we're from the Washington Interfaith Network, and our priorities are preservation and expansion of affordable housing. When we say affordable housing, we mean housing for everyone at every income level in this city. Police officers, teachers, working people need to be able to afford to live. At the same time, we're concerned about our public housing residents. They have RAD programs. DCHA is doing renovations, moving people out, switching to voucher programs. People who were formerly homeless, some of them are in stable housing but are now under threat of being destabilized. We're concerned about preservation of public lands and setting aside a portion of that land so that we can have affordable housing for all. So room in the budget to ensure that housing built on public land has a robust affordability at 30% of the area median income. Let me not leave out immigration. Let's preserve the diversity of D.C. What was formerly Chocolate City is not Chocolate City anymore. And we also want a diverse representation of people, Latinos, Africans, African Americans, people of Euro ancestry. Everybody should be represented in D.C., but we have to protect our immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that you mentioned workforce housing. And we went at workforce housing last year. We didn't get the fund that we needed for that teacher, police officer, government worker. So we have to continue to come up with other tools and fight for them. Okay, Moms Demand Action, red shirts. Who wants to speak? Okay.
We're a gun violence prevention group. A big key for us today is prevention. We are big supporters of the Pathways program, the Office of ONSE, and we want to focus on those kinds of programs that really target people who are, or focus on people who are most likely to commit violent acts, who are also often the victims. So we move those issues out of the way, which lets us have better outcomes in education and trauma. We also value trauma care, whether that's mental health for the people who are just having to deal with this every day in their life, or because they have been a victim of a gunshot wound, and making sure that we can get access to trauma care in Ward 7 and Ward 8.
All right, thank you, Monster Man. I'm going to go to Pathways to Possible, the University of the District of Columbia.
So my name is Jasmine Towner, and I currently serve as Miss University of the District of Columbia. And so I'm here to advocate for more funding for the only public institution in the nation's capital. So after about roughly a 50% budget cut, we only receive 1.1% compared to the national average of 5.8%, which is simply unacceptable. And so with this funding, it will allow us to improve our academic programs, infrastructure modernization, promote institutional effectiveness, which will allow our students to be able to reach their highest potential.
All right, let's give it up for UDC. I have a green shirt, DSP, correct? All right, you're going to speak for DSP.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael, and I'm here on behalf of the DSP. And the reason why our job is so important, because we have to establish relationships. And just like in everyone in here's life, a relationship is founded on trust. If my person that I support don't trust me, my job is made hard. And we do that every day relentlessly without compromise. And for that, we should be recognized and compensated appropriately for what we do. I'm here today with my person that I support, and I can tell you personally that he is not just my life, he's my lifestyle, and I enjoy what we do. I'm new to this profession, but those that I've been around that's been here for years, I commend them, because in the beginning it was like I asked myself, could I do that? Now I can't see myself doing anything else.
So tell me what DSP is advocating for.
For more money.
Okay.
We need more money for what we do, because DSP is a direct support professional. We provide support for people with intellectual developmental disabilities. They have rights that have been trampled on for so long, and we advocate for this. This is why I'm here on a Saturday.
Thank you. So, okay, seniors. All right, I got a senior button. All right, we're going to go to seniors.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Sean Jagaday, and I am here representing the DC Senior Advisory Coalition. We represent the more than 100,000 residents in the district who are over the age of 60 years old. We include more than 30 organizations who serve seniors, including AARP, Iona Senior Services, Seabury, and many of the other organizations that you work with. We are asking the district, first we want to say thank you, Mayor Bowser, for all of the investments you've made so far for seniors and for working to make DC one of the best cities to age in place. We appreciate that. We're asking that in addition to your resources from last year related to dementia, that the city allocates $100,000 to hire a dementia specialist, specifically to work for outreach east of the river. We recognize that residents of Ward 7 and Ward 8 are often not diagnosed fast enough with Alzheimer's and dementia, and we're asking that that specialist be able to do outreach and connect people to services and assessments. We're also asking for shallow subsidy, for increase the shallow rent subsidies for seniors, because many of our seniors are choosing between the rent that they pay and their medications and groceries. We're also asking for that we know that you're allocating 36,000 new housing. We're asking that a portion of that be allocated specifically for seniors. We want permanent housing so that our seniors can age in place and not be rent burdened. And then the last thing, we want to ask that every deputy mayor's office have a full-time FTE in that office that's assigned to make sure that all of the services they have are serving seniors equitably. Because all of the items that were listed, housing, transportation, public safety, all of those affect our seniors. And so thank you.
Wow, that was a budget presentation. Before I go to the next group, I just wanted to acknowledge some of our cabinet members who are here, who have been to our budget engagement forums, who are listening, who've been sitting at tables. You heard from the deputy mayors, but I want to acknowledge a few others. Our Chancellor of DC Public Schools, Chancellor Louis Farabee. Our fire chief back there, let's give it up for a big hand to Chief Dean. Our police chiefs here, Peter Newsham. Thank you, Chief Newsham. Our commander is here, Habiba Israel. Give her a big round of applause. And with all of the members of our team, just give a wave. A lot of them have on green shirts too, but they've been putting in a lot of time to get ready for today. So I want to thank you for that. Now, the black shirt right in front of me is, I can't see the letters. DEC.
Thank you.
So tell us about DEC and what is your budget ask?
Yes, first of all, hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Ashley Kearney, and I'm a part of DC Education Coalition for Change, but I'm also here with students supporting as their teacher and support. With that, we are a community organizing group made up of teachers, students, parents, and concerned community members that really just want better outcomes from students in DC. With that said, we have 3 budget acts. Specifically, we're talking about school budgets around mental health. We also want to support school transportation, and then school budgets increasing the at-risk weight. For mental health, we also understand that it's important to have mental health professionals in schools, but we really want a landscape analysis first that talks about the implementation and effectiveness of those programs so that we can then focus on the training of our teachers and all staff and the collaboration between those adults that support our students. For school transportation, we want to expand the Boots on the Ground program with trusted adults for safe passage, but we're also asking, and thank you for the recent extension for the New York Avenue shuttle, but it only takes $600,000 to keep it right into 2021. We also want $16 million to double the frequency of buses in priority routes for our students during dismissal time. We're asking for this, and we also thank you for making Go-Go the official music of DC.
Thank you. So you would thank the city council, our council, and this is our teacher from Ron Brown, right? Didn't you just win something important? This is one of our standing ovation outstanding teachers. Give her a big round of applause. Okay, I have another purple shirt. What group is this?
Grocery store task force.
Hold on. Let me get to DC Pave, and then I'll get to the grocery store. I'm sorry, under three. Tell me about your coalition. No, Pave. You've already spoken, Pave.
No. I'm doing for under 3 because my shy individual partners here.
We're doing it together.
Right. So we wanted
to.
Okay. So we wanted to make sure that we advocated there's a need for DC children subsidy programs by $40 million to improve the quality of care for our littlest kids and receive and to raise wages for child care educators. We also need to increase and reach of our Healthy Futures program by $1.5 million to ensure critical mental and behavioral health supports are available for more families. And this community wants to emphasize that they trust that you as the mayor will prioritize the collaboration with the DC council members to move these issues forward.
Okay.
And if it wasn't clear about the PAVE initiatives that were spoken by my colleague earlier.
It was clear.
Okay,
You don't get two chances because we want to get to somebody else. Who else do I have? DC values. Let me get to grocery store task force.
Hi, everyone. My name is Max. I'm a Ward 7 resident over in Deanwood. We are such a new group that we don't even have coordinated T-shirts. We're just, if you're wearing a yellow shirt out there for this group, let me see you. There we go. So the grocery store task force is focused on Ward 7 and east of the river and making sure that we invest in our small and local entrepreneurs like Mary here and others, whether that's through the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund or others. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, for the $1.5 million you put into Ward 7 in 2019. We're asking you to 10x that, $15 million to support local-based businesses to fill the grocery gaps in our communities. We will see you at the hearings.
All right, $15 million for small businesses. Okay, DC values, and I think that may be the last group. What's your group, ma'am? The which? Okay.
All right, good afternoon, and Mayor Bowser, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We, for the DC Values Coalition to Keep Immigrant Families Together, are asking for an increase in funding to $5 million. The impact that the IJLS funding has had has been profound. I personally am a managing attorney at the CARE Coalition, the Capital Area Immigrants' Rights Coalition. We are fortunate to have obtained funding from your administration for the first time this year. We just had our first asylum victory this past week.
Fantastic.
For a man who is a DC resident for 10 years and has 2 U.S. citizen daughters who live here in DC. On Wednesday night, after being granted asylum, he was able to be reunited with his family for the first time.
Fantastic.
This funding has a profound impact, but it can go further. It can do more. We're just one organization in this coalition. But by expanding funding for IJLS to $5 million to maintaining representation of detained immigrants, the proposed funding would allow our organization to represent every DC resident who's in immigration custody. And in addition, for those who are not detained, these cases take a long time. They don't end in 1 year. And so what we need is funding to allow us to continue providing the representation required when immigration cases are taking 5 and 10 years for our immigrant neighbors.
Thank you.
So with that, we're asking for that increase of $5 million.
Thank you very much. Thank you, DC Values. All right, last presentation, and the young lady in the red shirt.
Hi, my name is Carla Reed Witt, and I'm representing Decoding Dyslexia DC. We're a small, very new organization, but we've been advocating on behalf of kids with dyslexia and reading difficulties in DC for about a year now. Currently, there's legislation before the council. It's B 230150. It's called Access to Reading for All, addressing dyslexia and other reading difficulties. It will provide screening and intervention for students as well as training for teachers, among a lot of other things. So far, it's gotten through the Committee on Education, and hopefully we'll go for a markup next month. But once we get there, we need the funding. Dyslexia, it's reading, it's pervasive, it impacts everything, and in fact, it supports the mental health, school-based mental health goals that around the city today, because you can imagine what happens to kids mentally when they can't read.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to go through that. In which group? No, tell me which group.
Thank you. I'm Miss Emma Ward, Miss Senior DC 2011.
Thank you.
I'm one of the many people who represent the more than 127,000 seniors here in Washington, D.C. We don't say much, we just wave. So ask us if you need help.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I wanted to go through that round because that gives you a taste of what happens during the budget season down at City Hall. So people will come to advocate with directors, they will advocate with the council, and you can see how a lot of different programs get energy or rise to the top or don't rise to the top. So this was just a mini session of what the administration goes through during this process and what your fellow council members will go through. What we also see here are neighbors, folks who came today who aren't affiliated with any organization or maybe affiliated with their neighborhood group. And you can also see how the issues that come up in your neighborhoods or in your blocks, if they're not attached to a movement or an organization, they may fall through. So it's important to attach your issues to your ANC or your civic association so that they're raising up to the attention of administration officials and your council members. You get it? So this is just literally a small sample of how the process works, and it's democracy at its best. But I want to say this. How proud I am to see such a rich diversity of our city represented here today. All 8 wards, all backgrounds and beliefs, all abilities, and all people focused on continuing to make this the best city in the world and soon to be the 51st state. Thank you, everybody.